should warn you before we begin. What you're about to hear is the kind of story Netflix wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Not because it's too violent or too supernatural, but because it exposes something far worse. Something real. Something that slipped through every system meant to protect people like me. If you're watching this, don't scroll. People need to know what happened, because silence was the reason this nightmare lasted as long as it did. And before we go deeper, please share this video. Someone out there needs this warning, and trust me, you do not want to be the one who ignored it. My name is Ethan Vale, and this is the story Netflix refused to air. It started on the night my sister vanished. Grace wasn't the kind of person who disappeared. She was 24, responsible, sarcastic. The kind of girl who carried pepper spray even when walking her dog in broad daylight. The night she went missing, she wasn't out drinking or meeting strangers. She was simply driving home from a late shift at the bookstore she managed. She texted me she was grabbing a sandwich from Maple and Pine, the 24-hour deli. At 10:47 p.m., she sent a voice note. I remember her voice perfectly, even now. Hey, don't wait up. I'm exhausted. But you won't believe who I saw at the deli. The message cut off. I didn't think anything of it at the time. People lose signal constantly. But then midnight passed, then 1, then 2. By 3 a.m., I was calling everyone, her friends, local hospitals, even the police, who told me, politely, that adults go missing all the time. Give it 24 hours, they said. She probably needed space. Space? My sister? She didn't even like turning her phone off on airplanes. That morning when I retraced her path, I found her car parked exactly where she had mentioned. The deli lot. Driver's side door locked. Her sandwich still sitting on the passenger seat, untouched. But that wasn't the worst part. When I looked through the window, I saw her phone wedged between the driver's seat and the console. Grace would never leave that behind. I should have waited for backup. I should have called someone, but fear makes you reckless. Instead, I sprinted into the deli. The place was empty except for the owner, a frail man with half-moon glasses and a nervous tremor. He froze when he saw me, like he recognized me, like he'd been expecting me. Is this your sister? He asked, holding up a photo on his phone. My photo, my Facebook profile picture. I swallowed hard. Where did you get that? He didn't answer. Instead, he motioned me behind the counter toward a narrow door I'd never noticed. The deli had always seemed small, cramped, no larger than a living room. But behind that door was a stairway leading down into a basement that smelled like chemicals and damp concrete. I shouldn't be showing you this, he whispered. They'll know. They? But before I could ask, he forced the door shut behind me. The darkness was suffocating. My phone flashlight barely cut through it. The walls were plastered with newspaper clippings. Missing persons reports dating back 10 years. Dozens of them, maybe more, all printed, clipped, organized, meticulously, like some twisted museum display. And there, in the center, was Grace's photo. Not from her social media, not from work, from that day. The security camera still of her entering the deli. Someone had printed it less than 12 hours earlier. My chest tightened. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't ready. And I should have run, but I couldn't. Not when I heard it. A faint, muffled sound. A voice. A cry. It came from deeper in the basement. Grace, I whispered. Nothing answered. The silence was so thick it felt alive. My footsteps echoed as I moved forward, each one heavier than the last. That was when I saw the door. Steel. Reinforced. something you'd see in a safe or a bunker, and there were scratch marks around the frame. Nails, desperate and broken. My sister had been here. She had tried to get out. My fingers trembled as I touched the lock. It wasn't something a deli owner would have. This was industrial, high-grade, the kind used in research facilities or military installations. What the hell was going on? Then a sound snapped me back, a footstep behind me. I turned. The deli owner stood at the bottom of the stairs, and he was crying. "I tried to stop them," he whispered, "but once they choose someone, there's no undoing it." "Where is she?" I demanded. He shook his head violently. "I told you, they'll know I let you in. They always know." "Who? Who is they?" Before he could answer, a loud metallic click echoed through the basement. The steel door behind me unlocked from the inside. My blood ran cold. Someone was opening it. The deli owner's face drained of color. "Run," he mouthed. But it was too late. The door creaked open just an inch, then another. Then, a hand reached through, pale, thin, trembling. My heart stopped. "Ethan," a voice whispered. It was Grace. For a moment I felt weightless, relieved, terrified, every emotion tangled into one. She was alive. She was right there. I reached forward, but then something pulled her back. Not someone, something. I only saw its silhouette. A twisted, elongated shape, wrong in every possible way. A shadow that moved like liquid. A shape that didn't belong in the world I knew. The deli owner screamed. The door slammed shut, and the lock clicked again, sealing her inside. I pounded on it. My fists burned. I screamed her name until my throat tore. But the only sound I heard from the other side was a whisper. "Don't let it choose you too." My entire world collapsed. And that was just the beginning. Before we move to the next chapter, answer this for me in the comments. If someone you love vanished, how far would you go to get them back? No matter the cost? I didn't remember running out of the deli. I didn't remember leaving the basement or shoving past the terrified owner or bursting into the freezing night air like a man escaping a burning building. I only remembered the sound of Grace's voice, thin, cracked, swallowed by that thing behind her. Every instinct in me wanted to go back down there and rip that steel door off its hinges. But terror wrapped itself around my spine, squeezing tighter with every second. Something had taken her. And the worst part? It knew my name. The sky was starting to lighten when I finally reached the street. Dawn in Briarton was always quiet. But that morning felt wrong. Even the birds were silent, as if they knew something had slipped into our world. Something that didn't belong. I stumbled across the parking lot, searching my pockets for my phone. When I finally unlocked it, I had 23 missed calls from my mother. I couldn't bear to listen to her voice message. I couldn't lie to her. I couldn't tell her the truth either. Not yet. I pressed the record button and whispered, "I'm still looking. Don't worry." A lie, but a necessary one. I headed straight for my car. But when I reached for the door handle, I froze. On the windshield was a note. Plain white paper. No signature. Just 3 words. "Don't interfere again." My breath caught in my chest. The handwriting wasn't human. The letters were precise, too perfect, computer-like, as if someone had traced them with mechanical accuracy. Something primal in my brain screamed at me to run, to get as far away from Briarton as possible. But something stronger, the only thing that mattered, kept me rooted in place. Grace. I crumpled the note and threw it aside. Whoever or whatever had written it didn't know me. They didn't know what I was capable of when someone I loved was in danger. I got in my car and drove home, with shaking hands. When I arrived, my front door was already open. Not broken, just open. Like someone had wanted me to know they'd been inside. I stepped forward cautiously, expecting the worst. But the house looked normal, too normal. Every photo frame was right where it belonged. Every book aligned perfectly. Every object untouched, except one. On my kitchen table sat an old VHS tape. Black, dusty, unlabeled. I hadn't owned a VHS player since I moved in. Whoever left it brought their own. It sat plugged into my TV waiting for me. I didn't want to play it. I didn't want to see what was on it. But I had no choice. If it led me to grace, to answers, to anything, I had to. So I hit play. The screen flickered to life, showing grainy night vision footage of the deli basement, the steel door, the scratch marks, the same room I had stood in hours earlier. But this footage wasn't from last night. It was from months ago. And it showed a woman I didn't know pounding on the same steel door, screaming for someone to help her. Her hands were raw, her voice hoarse, but she kept hitting, kept fighting. Then the door opened. Something slithered out. A shape thinner than a person should be. Longer. Like someone had taken a human silhouette and stretched it until it cracked. Its limbs folded in impossible angles. Its movements were smooth and elegant, like a dancer made of shadow. The woman froze. She didn't scream, she didn't run. She simply collapsed to her knees in silent terror. The creature drifted forward, and then the tape cut to static. I stumbled backward, nearly knocking over a chair. My heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. What was that thing? Where did it come from? And what did it want with my sister? Before I could gather my thoughts, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Meet me at the old Briarton water plant. Midnight, come alone. My hands shook as I typed back, "Do you have my sister?" The reply came instantly. "If you ever want to see her again." I didn't hesitate. I was going. But I wasn't going unprepared. I grabbed a flashlight, a pocket knife, and the old metal baseball bat from my dad's garage. One of the last things he left behind before he passed. It felt heavy, comforting. Like maybe, just maybe, I had a fighting chance. But as I headed toward the door, something stopped me. A thought, a question, one that lodged itself deep in my mind. What if I wasn't the first person who tried to save someone taken by that thing? And worse, what happened to the ones who tried before me? Before we move forward, I want to ask you something. Because stories like this, stories about family, desperation, and the unknown, they're not just stories. They're warnings. If you discovered the truth about someone you loved was darker than anything you imagined, would you still fight for them? Or would you turn back? Tell me in the comments. I want to know how far you'd go. Because as you'll see, I didn't turn back. I should have. Midnight was hours away, and the water plant was waiting. By the time midnight approached, Briarton felt like a ghost town. Streetlights flickered as if they were trying to warn me, but nothing could have stopped me. I kept picturing Grace's hand reaching out from that steel door, and that thing pulling her back. Every minute I waited was another minute she spent in that basement with whatever hunted her. The old Briarton water plant sat on the far edge of town, surrounded by miles of dead fields and rusted fences. It had been abandoned for nearly 20 years. People whispered about accidents, toxic waste, shady government involvement, small-town conspiracy theories mostly. I'd never believed any of them. Now, Now I believed everything. The building's silhouette rose in the darkness like a broken monument. Cracked windows, collapsed roofs, pipes snaking along the exterior like metal veins. And somewhere inside, someone or something was waiting for me. I parked a block away and approached on foot. Every sound felt amplified, gravel crunching beneath my boots, the soft hum of distant power lines, my heartbeat drumming inside my ears. As I climbed through a hole in the fence, a cold realization hit me. I wasn't alone. Someone was inside the plant with a flashlight. A dim yellow glow moved behind a row of tall tanks, sweeping slowly across the rusting machinery. The beam was steady, too steady to be nervous, too controlled to be accidental. Whoever texted me was already here. I tightened my grip on the baseball bat and stepped inside. The air was stale, heavy. It smelled like dust and old metal, but beneath that, something else. Something sour and rotten, like decayed wood soaked in chemicals. I moved deeper, staying in the shadows. A voice echoed across the room. "You're early." I turned sharply. The flashlight beam shut off, plunging the plant into darkness. Then it flicked back on, pointed at the ceiling now, revealing the person holding it. A woman, tall, hooded, her face half hidden under a cap. She lowered the beam until it settled on me. "Drop the bat," she said. I didn't move. She sighed. "If I wanted to hurt you, Ethan, I wouldn't have told you to come alone." The way she said my name made the hairs on my neck rise. Familiar, but I couldn't place it. "Who are you?" I asked. She stepped closer, not threatening but cautious. "I'm someone who knows what took your sister." My grip loosened involuntarily. "You saw it?" "More than once." My voice shook. "Then tell me what it is." "Not what," she corrected. "Who?" My stomach dropped. "Show me," I demanded. The woman gestured for me to follow. We walked deeper into the plant until we reached a side room with a warped metal door. She pushed it open to reveal an entire wall covered in photographs. Missing people. Dozens, maybe over 100, men, women, children, old, young, each surrounded by notes, maps, timelines. But my eyes stopped when I saw Grace's photo pinned at the center. I felt sick. "What is all this?" I whispered. The woman folded her arms. "Evidence." "Evidence of what?" She hesitated. "You're not going to believe me. Try me." She looked me dead in the eye. "There's a cult operating in Briarton, calling themselves the Lumen Order. They don't worship gods. They worship something older. Something they believe lives between our world and the next." She pointed at Grace's picture. "Your sister wasn't chosen randomly." My blood ran cold. Chosen. "You're lying," I said, though part of me knew she wasn't, not after what I'd seen. "Those things in the basement," "Not things," she cut in. "Hosts." I swallowed. "Hosts of what?" She didn't blink. "Of the echo." "What the hell is the echo?" She studied me for a second like she was deciding whether to tell me the truth or let me walk away in ignorance. Then she turned to a drawer, opened it, and pulled out a thick file. She tossed it onto a metal table. It slid across the surface and hit my hand. Inside were autopsy photos, at least a dozen. Each body twisted, elongated, limbs stretched unnaturally, like they had been reshaped from the inside out. I stumbled back. No, that's impossible." "It's not impossible," she said softly. "Just hidden." I felt like the floor was tilting beneath me. My breath came in short bursts. "Why Grace? Why my sister?" "Because," the woman said, "she's the only one who ever survived the first stage." My head snapped up. "The first stage of what?" The echo's claiming process. Your sister resisted it. She paused. No one else ever has. I felt dizzy. Grace, resisting that thing, surviving something no one else had. Where is she? I asked. Tell me where they took her. The woman exhaled slowly. She's still at the deli. I stared at her. What? That basement? She's alive? For now. I slammed my palm against the table. Then why aren't we going there right now? Because you don't understand the rules, she said sharply. The echo chooses who it wants. It marks them. Once chosen, a person can't be taken back without consequences. I don't care about consequences. You should, she said, stepping closer. Do you know why Netflix refused to air anything about Briarton? Why no national agency would touch this story? Because everyone who investigates it either vanishes or, she gestured toward the autopsy photos, ends up like that. Silence pressed around us. Finally, she continued, voice low. Do you still want to save your sister? It wasn't even a question. I nodded. Then you need to know something, she said. The echo didn't just choose Grace. My spine froze. It also chose you. My heart stopped. What are you talking about? You went into its space. It recognized you. You touched the door, its door. It marked you. You're tied to it now. Tied how? Think of it as a tether, she explained. You go back down there alone, it'll take you too. Then we go together, I said. She shook her head slowly. I'm not marked. I'm invisible to it. She paused. But you're already halfway inside its world. Her eyes softened for the first time. Ethan, the question is no longer if we save your sister. It's whether saving her will cost you your life. My throat tightened. And in that moment, standing there beneath flickering lights, surrounded by photos of people who never came back, I realized something brutal. I didn't care what it cost. Before we move on, I want you, yes, you, to answer something for me in the comments. If saving someone you love meant risking your own life, your sanity, maybe even your soul, would you still do it? Or is there a line you wouldn't cross? Think on that. Because I was about to cross every line I had. The woman's name was Mara. She didn't offer it. I had to pry it out of her after 20 minutes of arguing, threatening, pacing, and demanding answers. But I finally got it. And the moment she said it, something clicked. I'd heard the name before. Years ago, whispered around town. Always in connection with disappearances. Always in connection with people who went looking for someone and never came back. Mara wasn't a conspiracy theorist. She wasn't a lunatic. She was a survivor. And she was my only chance. We spent the next hour moving through the abandoned water plant, gathering equipment she'd stashed years earlier. Maps, flashlights, infrared lenses, vials of thick black powder she said would trick the echo, though she wouldn't tell me how. You'll understand when you see it, she kept saying. I was starting to hate those words. But the truth was I needed her. The closer midnight crept, the more my mind replayed Grace's voice through that steel door, weak, afraid, calling my name. Every second felt like a countdown. By the time the clock hit 2:13 a.m., we were standing outside the water plant again, loading her gear into my car. You drive, she said, tossing the bag into the back seat. Why? I asked. Because marked people attract the echo. If anything tries to follow us, it'll follow you. Gives me time to spot it. That's supposed to make me feel better? It's not. She slid into the passenger seat. I started the engine. As we sped through Briarton, the streets felt emptier than before. like the whole town was holding its breath. Houses were dark, windows drawn, lawns still. Even the stray dogs that normally scavenged near the trash bins were nowhere in sight. "They know," Mara said quietly. "Who?" "The Order. They know you got involved." "How?" "Because the Echo knows." She looked at me. "And the Order worships its movements. They follow its choices. So they know Grace resisted it. They know she survived stage 1, Mara corrected, and that makes her valuable. Valuable. The word felt like poison. "What about me?" I asked. She hesitated. "You're valuable for a different reason." I didn't want to know what that meant, not yet. We reached the deli at 2:38 a.m. The parking lot was empty. The building stood silent, not a single light on inside. Like it had been abandoned for decades, not hours. I killed the engine. "Okay," Mara whispered. "Listen carefully. The Echo doesn't attack randomly. It follows patterns, rules, it marks, it observes, and only then does it take. Why? Because it can't fully exist here. It needs hosts to anchor itself." She pointed toward the deli. "That basement, it's not a basement, it's a threshold, a doorway between their space and ours." My mouth went dry. "And they built it under a sandwich shop? They build them everywhere people don't look." I swallowed hard. This was madness. But I'd seen enough to know madness didn't mean impossible. "So what's the plan?" I asked. Mara took a deep breath. "We go in fast. Do not touch anything that looks like it's moving. Do not speak to anything that sounds like your sister unless you can physically see her." "What? Why?" "Because the Echo mimics voices," she said. "It tries to lure marked people closer." My skin crawled. "We get to the steel door," she continued. "We break the lock. We pull Grace out, and we run before the Echo chooses a second host." "A second host?" She looked at me with an expression I wasn't ready for, pity. "It doesn't just choose one person, Ethan. It always chooses two." I froze. "Why two?" "Because the Echo needs a sacrifice and a replacement." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Which one is Grace?" I asked. Mara shook her head. "We won't know until it's too late." I felt the ground tilt beneath me. A sickening realization bloomed in my stomach. What if I'm the replacement? Then we make sure you aren't. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small glass vial filled with a shimmering black powder. "What's that?" I asked. "Obsidian ash. It hides your presence from the Echo just for a few minutes." She pressed it into my hand. "But don't use it until I say so." "Why?" "Because once you open it, the Echo will sense something's wrong, and it will come." I tightened my fist around the vial. She stepped toward the deli door. "You ready?" she asked. "No." "Good. Fear keeps you alive." She pushed the door open. The deli interior looked wrong. Rotting, twisted. Like the building had aged a century since I'd last been inside. The air was damp and warm, almost humid, and the silence was unnatural, thick enough to feel. Then I heard it. A faint scratching below the floor. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Mara stiffened. "It's awake." A shiver ran down my spine. "Grace?" "No," she whispered. "Not yet." We moved behind the counter toward the narrow door leading to the basement. A cold draft rolled up from beneath it, colder than anything I'd ever felt. My breath fogged in the air. Mara held up a hand. "Listen." At first I heard nothing. Then, "Ethan?" It was a whisper. The same broken voice I'd heard hours earlier, my sister's voice. "Ethan, please." I lunged forward, but Mara grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "No, that's not her." How do you know? Because she can't speak while the door is locked, she snapped. The echo uses voices of the marked to pull others closer. That's how it got the woman in the VHS tape. My stomach twisted. Do not let it trick you again, she said. Not now. We reached the steel door. The scratch marks were deeper than before, fresh, raw. Something had clawed at it recently. Mara crouched down, examining the lock. This isn't the same lock as before. What does that mean? It means the order reinforced it, she said. They don't want us opening it tonight. I stepped forward. Then we break it. Mara looked up at me, eyes fierce. You open that door, Ethan, and everything changes. There's no going back. I didn't blink. Open it. She exhaled slowly, then nodded. On 3. My pulse quickened. My throat tightened. The basement felt alive, breathing with us, watching. 1. The air grew colder. 2. Something moved behind the door. 3. Mara smashed the lock. The door swung open, and what I saw inside wasn't my sister. It was something far worse. The road leading back to the cabin felt strangely shorter than I remembered. Like the forest itself wanted me to return to finish what I'd started. My headlights cut through the trees, and each branch looked like a hand reaching out, urging me forward or warning me back. I genuinely couldn't tell which. When I finally stepped out of the car, everything was quiet. Too quiet. No wind, no insects, no distant creaks of branches. Even the air felt held, as if the forest was holding its breath with me. The cabin door was already open, not broken into, just open. I froze. My heart galloped so hard in my chest I felt it in my teeth. Part of me wanted to run, but another part, the part that had carried me through the last horrifying chapters, pushed me onward. Inside the cabin was dark, except for the soft sway of lantern light. Someone had lit them. Someone was waiting. I stepped in and immediately noticed it. The smell. Not of blood or rot, but something else. Something old. I followed it, inching forward until I reached the kitchen table. And sitting there, placed neatly in the center like a birthday cake at a party, was the notebook. Only now it was open. A fresh page with a fresh message. Written in handwriting I recognized too well. You're late. My stomach dropped. Because I knew whose handwriting it was, and I knew he was here, in the darkness, watching me. Come out, I whispered, my voice trembling but steady enough to echo. A shadow shifted in the corner. Slow. Calculated. Then he stepped forward. The man who had taken Emily, the man who had orchestrated everything, the man whose face haunted every night since the nightmare began. He looked, older, weathered, but his eyes burned the same sickening brand of satisfaction. You finally came back, he said softly. Good. Now the ending can be written properly. I tightened my grip on the recorder in my pocket, the only weapon I had, because sometimes truth is more dangerous than knives. He stepped closer, unfazed. You've been sharing my story with the world, he said. But you left out the most important part. And what's that? I forced out. He smiled, a slow, thin, horrifying smile. You never told them what you did. A chill ran down my spine. You're lying, I said. But he only stepped closer. I know what you found that night, he whispered. I know the truth you buried to survive. The truth Netflix couldn't touch. The truth even you're afraid to admit. I swallowed hard because deep down, some part of me already feared what he meant. He tilted his head. Tell me, do you still dream about her screaming? Screaming? My knees weakened. What? What are you talking about? He stepped close enough that I could smell the forest on him, hear the quiet rasp of his breath. You don't remember, do you? Good, that makes this even sweeter. My vision fogged. His words twisted around me. Memories I'd buried, blurred flashes, distorted sounds, pressed at the edges of my mind, and then he raised something slowly from his pocket. Not a knife, not a gun, a photograph. My sister Emily. But she wasn't tied or gagged, and she was holding my hand, in that same forest, on that same night. I stumbled back. No, I whispered. No, that's impossible. He laughed, a dry, cold fracture of a sound. You see? You were there. You were always part of it. My breath shattered. I would never. But he cut me off with venom. You think you were the hero, he hissed. But you were the beginning. The lantern flickered. My mind spun. The room swayed. Because suddenly, I remembered. Not everything, just one moment, one unbearable, unmovable moment. Emily screaming, calling my name, begging, and me running, leaving her behind. Because I was too scared, because I saved myself. I staggered as the truth shoved itself through my ribs, and he leaned in, whispering, "Now, finish her story." My heart broke, but something else sparked too. Anger, fire, rage, and a strength I didn't know I still had. You're right, I said, standing tall despite the quake in my knees. I ran that night. His smirk widened, but I'm not running now. Before he could react, I swung, not with a fist, not with a weapon, but with the recorder. I slammed it into his temple with every ounce of force in my body. He staggered. I hit him again and again, until he fell to the floor, gasping, clawing at the ground to rise. But I didn't let him. For the first time, I didn't run. When he finally stilled, I stood above him, chest heaving, tears falling but strength burning hot and unwavering in my veins. And I whispered, "This is the ending I choose." In that moment, the cabin exhaled, like the forest itself approved, like the nightmare had finally met its match. But I still had one chapter left, one final truth to face and one final redemption to earn, because breaking the cycle wasn't enough. I needed to find the full truth and bring Emily home, alive or at peace. I lifted the villain's keys from his pocket and walked out into the night, ready for the final reckoning. I didn't look back at the cabin, not once. I couldn't. I knew that if I saw his body broken, still, and silent, I might collapse under the weight of everything that had finally surfaced. The guilt, the memories, the truth I had spent years swallowing whole. But the night wasn't done with me. And neither was Emily's story. His keys jingled quietly in my hand as I walked down the forest path. Moonlight slipped between the branches like silver threads, guiding me deeper, farther, into the parts of the woods no one dared to enter, the place he kept calling her haven. I wish I could say I wasn't terrified, but I was. Every breath trembled, every step felt like walking toward a truth sharp enough to cut. My heartbeat echoed in my ears so loudly it almost drowned out the quiet whisper of the forest wind. Almost. Because soon, another sound joined it. Water. Flowing somewhere just ahead. A river I'd forgotten existed despite walking these woods my whole childhood. Or maybe I didn't forget. Maybe I buried it like everything else. The keys had numbers scratched on them. 4, 17, R. At first, they meant nothing. But then I saw it. An old maintenance door built into a rocky hillside, half hidden behind creeping vines and moss. It wasn't a cabin, not a bunker, not a shed. It was a tunnel entrance, a forgotten one. Something he didn't build, something he discovered. The metal was rusted, but the lock was new. I held my breath, slid the key in, and turned. The click echoed through the forest, like a gunshot. Inside, darkness, cold, heavy, absolute. I swallowed, switched on my flashlight, and stepped down into the earth. The walls were concrete, governmental, industrial, something old and abandoned long before any of us were born. Pipes ran along the ceiling. Dust floated in the beam of my light. My footsteps sounded hollow, like the ground itself was warning me. Go back, go back, go back. But I kept going. For her, for me. The tunnel eventually forked. One path collapsed and impassable. The other sloped downward into a larger chamber. That's where I heard it, a faint, steady sound. Not water, not wind. Breathing, human breathing. I turned off my light. My heart thrashed inside my ribs. I moved slowly, quietly, feeling the cold air brush against my face. As my eyes adjusted, the silhouette of a figure came into view. A woman. Thin. Still. Sitting on the floor with her knees pulled to her chest. Her hair hung in tangled waves. Her clothes were tattered. Her hands... God, her hands were trembling. "Emily?" I whispered. The breathing stopped. A slow, hesitant shift of her shoulders. Then her head turned slightly toward me. I stepped closer, flashlight still off, my throat closing with terror and hope tangled together. "Emily, it's untold." "It's me." Silence. Then, a small, broken whisper. "You came back." My legs buckled and I fell to my knees in front of her. I didn't touch her, not yet. I didn't know if she wanted that, if she even remembered me clearly, or if touching her would break whatever fragile reality she was clinging to. "I'm here," I said. "I'm here now, and I'm not leaving you again." She lifted her head, and I saw her eyes. They weren't the same. They were sunken, exhausted, haunted. But behind all of that, behind the pain, there was something else still alive. Recognition, soft, faint, real. She raised her hand, thin, shaking, and placed it on mine. "You left me," she whispered, and the words stabbed deeper than anything that man ever did to me. "I know," I said, tears spilling freely. "I know. And I'm so sorry, but I didn't remember until tonight. I didn't remember what happened." "You ran," she whispered again. "I know," I said, "but I'm not running now." She closed her eyes, and for the first time since I entered the chamber, her shoulders loosened. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning, a chance. "We have to go," I said. "He's not coming back." Her eyes snapped open in alarm. "He always comes back," she breathed. "Always." "Not anymore," I whispered. She studied my face, looking for truth, fear, or maybe courage. Whatever she found seemed enough. She nodded. Barely, but enough. I helped her stand, gently, slowly, and she leaned on me as we walked out of the chamber, through the tunnel, and into the night. The air hit her like a shock. She squeezed her eyes shut against the moonlight, clutching my arm with surprising strength. "It's real?" she whispered. "Yes," I said, "you're safe." But the forest? The forest didn't feel safe, not yet. A feeling crawled up my spine, primal and cold. Something watching, something waiting. I turned, scanning the darkness. Because even though I'd left his body in the cabin, even though I'd hit him hard enough to drop him, I never checked if he was breathing. I never checked if he was dead. And the forest suddenly felt alive with eyes. "We need to move," I whispered. "Now." Emily nodded, fear flickering in her tired eyes. We started toward the car. Every branch crackling under our feet sounded like footsteps behind us. Every whisper of wind sounded like breath. And then, halfway to the clearing, Emily's grip tightened on my arm. I froze. "What is it?" I whispered. Her voice trembled. "He's here." Emily's words sliced through the night, sharp as broken glass. "He's here." My pulse went haywire. Every instinct screamed to run, but the years of running, the guilt, the nightmares, they had forged something stronger in me. I couldn't run anymore. Not from him. Not from what I'd left behind. I pulled Emily close, whispering, "Stay behind me, whatever happens. We face it together." The forest seemed to shift around us, shadows stretching unnaturally, leaves rustling without wind. The hairs on my neck stood on end. Somewhere in the darkness, a figure emerged, tall, thin, with eyes that glimmered like embers. The man from the cabin, the one who had orchestrated everything. He smiled, cold and knowing. "You shouldn't have come back," he said. His voice carried over the stillness like ice. "You can't save her. You can't save yourself." Emily trembled, but she didn't falter. She looked up at me, her hand gripping mine tightly. Her survival had changed her. She wasn't the scared girl from the VHS tape or the basement anymore. She was stronger, ready, alive. I took a deep breath, planting my feet firmly. "You're wrong," I said. "I didn't come back for myself. I came back for her. And for everyone you've taken, it ends tonight." The man laughed, low, sinister. He stepped forward, but the shadows behind him seemed to ripple, forming shapes I couldn't identify, elongated limbs, twisted silhouettes, impossible angles. The echo, it had followed him. It had been bound to him all along. I knew what I had to do. "Emily, trust me," I said. She nodded. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the last vial of obsidian ash Mara had given me. I uncorked it, letting the black powder swirl into the air. It shimmered like liquid night. And immediately, the figure faltered, confused, blinking against the strange light. The echo hissed, an unnatural, bone-chilling sound. I charged, heart hammering, fear roaring, but controlled. The man swung at me, wild, desperate, but I dodged. I threw another handful of ash at him, and the shadows twisted, recoiling. It shrieked, a sound that pierced through the trees and froze the blood in my veins. "Emily, now!" I shouted. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed a heavy branch from the ground and swung it at the man. The impact sent him staggering back, tripping over roots, crashing into the underbrush. He roared, but the ash burned his connection to the echo, forcing it to retreat, to dissolve into the darkness from which it came. The forest fell silent. We stood together, chest heaving, trembling, but alive. For the first time since this nightmare began, the oppressive weight of fear lifted slightly. The man scrambled to his feet, glaring at us, but I could see it in his eyes. He was done. Defeated. I stepped toward him. "It's over. Leave. Or the next time it won't just be you." He hesitated, then turned, melting into the darkness. Gone. Never coming back. Emily and I stood in silence for a moment, listening to the night reclaim its quiet. Her hand in mine felt real, warm, alive. I bent down, looking into her eyes. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I should have been there before. I should have saved you sooner." She shook her head. "You were lost too, but you came back. That's what matters." For the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. And she smiled back. We walked back toward the clearing where the car was parked, leaning on each other. Every step felt lighter than the last. The forest no longer menaced us. It was just a forest again. When we reached the car, I looked back one last time. The shadows were gone. The echo had vanished. The nightmare that had haunted Briarton and our lives was finally behind us. I started the engine and Emily sat quietly, looking out the window at the moonlit trees. "I know we'll never forget," she said softly. "No," I said, "but we survived. That's what matters, and we have each other." I pulled out of the forest slowly, the quiet night surrounding us. My phone buzzed. Notifications, messages, everything mundane. Life, normalcy. Fragile, but ours again. When we arrived home, we sat together in silence, just breathing, just existing. Outside, the world moved on. Inside, we had reclaimed what the darkness had tried to steal. And in that moment, I realized something important. Victory doesn't always come from defeating monsters. It comes from never giving up on the people you love, even when all hope seems lost. Emily turned to me, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "Thank you." I held her tight, whispering back, "No. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for waiting for me." The next morning, the sun rose over Briarton, bright, golden, forgiving. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. And for the first time, I knew we were going to be okay. The case may have been too disturbing for Netflix, too dark for headlines, too horrifying for most to believe. But for us, it ended with love, with survival, with redemption. And that was more than enough.